So yeah, I was lucky enough to get into the Digimon Alysion closed beta. If you missed any of my rolling coverage, I did 3 live streams you can check out that are VODs on my channel right now, or you can go over to my second channel with my bud Tom, Extra Juicy, where we did 2 full videos playing the game too. Despite what people were worried about, yes, you were allowed to stream and make videos about the closed beta test, there was no NDA. For full transparency, I received absolutely no special treatment from Bandai Namco for this one. As far as I know, no content creators did, maybe a very small amount, so this is my honest opinion, not influenced by special influencer content creator treatment. But I had a ton of fun with this closed beta. The core mechanics of the Digimon TCG are there, the story is engaging, and as a mobile game, I was hooked playing every day, and I'm now going to be bereft not being able to play it every day until the full release. But that being said, despite everything I liked, especially when it comes to the lore, but also the gameplay, I do have some concerns. What is up, digital companions? My name is Karn EX and welcome back to another video, and yes, today we are talking about Digimon Alysion. Heads up, there are going to be spoilers for what we learned from the closed beta, so if you are trying to go in completely blind on Digimon Alysion, turn away now, but give a like and a comment before you do. Appreciate you. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and the main chunk of this video is going to be talking about confirmation of theories that I had before the closed beta came out, and story implications, but at the end I am going to talk about some problems I have with the actual game itself, so if you're a kind of TCG mobile game head, stick around for that. First of all, yep, Gemmon is future. Now listen, you can see this one coming from a mile away, but we didn't quite know the permutation it was going to take. Was Gemmon going to straight up be future? Was future going to be some emissary of Gemmon, a digital life form based on Gemmon? But no, they're the exact same creature. Gemmon just takes a human girl form sometimes for some reason. So we can take that one off our theory list. Second is we actually surprisingly got to see the mega evolution of Gemmon's red evolution line in this demo too, as well as the mega of the new Renamon line. Now, the new Renamon line I'm less excited about. The mega from Tenkomon and Sekamon is Yukinamon. And you know, it's cool based on the Yuki owner. Actually, funnily enough, a while back we did a custom art video where Alltrade designed a Yuki owner Digimon, and I made it a mega level Digimon and gave it lore relating to Sakuyamon and Kuzuhamon. So we can chalk that up to another new Digimon, definitely 100% based on Karn custom art videos and not just a coincidence. I am a little bit disappointed this wasn't like a masculine variant for Renamon, but you know, more girl Digimon is not bad either, especially in Alysion, which seems to have a lot of themes of girlhood going on. That promotional music video they released, the kind of main theme of Alysion, Firebird Girls, really speaks to that bond between girls, like a sisterly bond. However, what's much more interesting to me is Gemmon's new mega, Rubiastramon. Now, if you're just catching up with these videos, don't worry, but I have talked about in a couple of videos now, but most recently, I have a theory that Gemmon is going to have branching Digivolutions based on the colors of the Digimon card game, which also align with the gems of the Lacuna server of Digimon Liberator. And the fact that Gemmon becomes Rubiastramon, while not confirming my theory, I think really doubles down on it. First of all, Liskmon that Gemmon digivolves into is kind of a basilisk, but also taking traits from the cockatrice. This to me is an example of the bird Digimon you see in red archetype decks, like Muchomon being very prominent in Digimon Liberator. Then you get Reptilimon, while an ultimate level, it visually obviously evokes a feminine War Greymon, from its pose to its headpiece and even its hair, but made longer. War Greymon, of course, is a staple of red decks, especially in the BT 1-3 format that Alysion takes place in. I'll touch on that later. And now we have Rubiastramon, who still retains a couple of elements of the white Gemmon, but its body has turned lizard red, just like the Guilmon family, and it is clad in a kind of knightly medieval armor with this kind of poleaxe, evoking Gallantmon and medieval Gallantmon. Medieval Gallantmon being another Liberator Digimon, heavily associated with Shoto, obviously not originally from Liberator, but it does have a place in Liberator, and regular Gallantmon also being a staple of, say it with me, red decks. I think it is no coincidence that Gemmon specifically digivolving through a red deck is taking on traits of red archetype Digimon from the card game. Dragons, dinosaurs, birds, Gallantmon, War Greymon, you know? But I think even more interesting here is that while we've known for a while that Digimon Alysion takes place in the same world as Digimon Liberator, I did not expect such a early direct crossover, because during the 2 chapters of story we get, well, first of all, we get to meet someone who has a partner, Harrismon. We don't see Koga's Harrismon, unfortunately. It's stuck in the D storage, but hopefully we'll see it in the full game. I'm guaranteeing we'll see it in the full game. But we also encounter an evil version of Shoto from Digimon Liberator, the main character. He also has a kind of evil-looking possessed Terramon line, from Fluffymon all the way through to Zephagamon. We don't actually get to find out why he's here or what he's doing, but his cards are in this format, and I'll quickly touch on this. So the way the format of the TCG works right now in Alysion is it is not one-to-one with the current IRL meta. Instead, it is largely BT 1, 2, and 3 cards from the real card game, but they have added Digimon Alysion cards. They kind of talked about this way back when they announced it, saying there would be these Digi Ally cards. Based on some other stuff, it might be that these Digimon Alysion cards are exclusive to Digimon Alysion the game, and I'm very conflicted on this. I think bare minimum I would like to collect these cards, even if they don't prove very useful in the current meta. Release an LM set maybe with all the Alysion cards, just so I can have them as merch. But yes, those cards that are sprinkled in are primarily the entire Gemmon evolution line, the entire new Renamon evolution line, plus Kanata and Valna as tamers, as well as options pertinent to their playstyle. But we do have additions, such as Black Shoto and his entire Zephagamon line. And by the way, black blockers with the addition of a Zephagamon Searcher, incredible. I was loving that deck. So it's kind of an augmented version of the 1.5 format, if you were familiar with that. Moving back to the lore though, what does this mean? I was so surprised to see such early direct connection to Digimon Liberator in Alysion, besides obviously the world. We are straight up seeing Shoto and Terramon here, but obviously evil versions. This begs the question, what happened to Shoto, or did something happen to Shoto? Interestingly, we do have a existing precedent for this in Digimon Liberator, as Unchained used the data of Zenith, a real man, to make a kind of evil version of him in the game. Is this evil Shoto another Unchained evil copy? We don't know. It's then interesting to think chronologically in the Liberator timeline, where does Alysion fall? Presumably if there's an evil Shoto, even if it's not literally Shoto, that means his data has entered the game, so this is occurring at some point past the beginning of Liberator. My assumption is this is going to marry up nearly exactly with where Liberator is up to by the time Digimon Alysion releases, which I firmly believe is this year, but could be the start of next year. Playing the closed beta, while it does have things that need to be fixed and changed and tweaked, this feels like a very competent build that honestly, if you just release this build right now, people would play and get along with, you know? There would be issues, people would moan, but I think most people would just play it happily. So I think between October and December this year is very likely at the bare minimum for an open beta. I'm also then curious, if we are getting such a direct link to Liberator, if we are going to see Future's connection to Close and Unchained, the other grey-haired digital life forms. Admittedly, they don't have Digimon forms, they have Digimon partners, but still, there's this weird connection between the three. I do think the two things I'm most interested in right now are seeing if my theories about Gemmon's evolution line comes true. We've already got the full red line for Gemmon this early, and for all intents and purposes, Gemmon is kind of acting like Kanata's partner. Kanata is the tamer of the red Gemmon line, and the whole game has deck building. In fact, by the end of chapter 2, you're able to take your own decks against Koga. So it would seem very early for a mobile game that's going to span like at least a year. I mean, I hope many years, but they're going to have a rollout plan for the first couple of years for every possible evolution for Gemmon to already have been revealed by the time the closed beta comes out. It just doesn't feel likely to me. So I think bare minimum we're going to see at least other Gemmon cards in the red archetype, but I think it makes far more sense that Gemmon, this little carbuncle, is going to be able to have yellow cards, blue cards, etc. And because that Alysion trait kind of can play off each other, in fact I'm sure there's a world where you could make a red-blue deck right now, well not right now, the beta's closed, using the Alysion side of Renamon and the Alysion side of Gemmon. I just think it's no coincidence that Rubyastramon could be connected to the Ruby Mountain of Digimon Liberator. Then the Emerald Coast could get Emeraldmon, etc, etc, giving you these new Alysion cards that they're so keen on in a nice way that you can play for every chapter. Unlock, you know, chapter 5 and suddenly Gemmon gives you a purple deck instead, and now you have Amethystmon as your new mega, your new ace in the hole. Story-wise, it just makes sense to me. So right now with the bare bones of the story, that's kind of what I'm most excited about. However, talking about the game itself, I do have some issues. Now, first of all, looking at it, some of it is a little amateurish, especially the text. I think the overall UI is very nice, but a lot of the text kind of feels like it's almost temporary, and again, a lot of these criticisms are of a closed beta. It might be intentional that these things are going to change in the final game. There are also UI elements that are just a little bit annoying. For example, when you go to start matchmaking, it doesn't actually look like you can change your deck from the matchmaking screen, but you can, and there's other little things that annoy me. Your hand, when you play the game, will typically shrink to a smaller view view that you can then expand by tapping. However, many times myself and other players I've observed have tried to drag a card directly from that minimized hand because it looks like you can and you can't. You should be able to do that in the finished game. There was actually a questionnaire feedback form. This is the only way that I can convey information to the Alysion team because they have not contacted me. In fact, I have no way to contact them. Departments in Digimon are so spread out and don't really communicate with each other. So yes, Hara can watch my videos. That's no guarantee the Alysion team have even seen a single thing I've posted. The biggest thing I encountered trying to run a black deck was that I was hitting gameplay fairly often where I was literally unable to play more Digimon. If you haven't played the Digimon TCG, as far as I'm aware, there's no limit on how many Digimon you can have on the board. It's only dictated by the amount of cards in your deck, the amount of memory you have, and the amount of physical space. It's honestly more likely that you're going to deck out sooner than you are ever going to not have space to play Digimon in the real card game. However, because while it is not against the rules, it is not a rule change or a format change, they decided in Alysion to have tamers occupy the same space in the battle area as the Digimon. Now again, as I say, this is actually not incorrect. The rules do not specify that the tamers should go to a different area than the Digimon. And recently with things like tamers having inheritables being able to be tucked, it kind of makes sense. However, visually to me, it is so messy to have that be the case. I'm often, especially on a smaller screen, looking at my opponent and having to manually count how many Digimon they have because there's tamers interspersed with Digimon. But the second problem here is that I was playing a game, I had 4 tamers out and 5 Digimon, not an insane amount when you consider that you need 6 swings to win a game, and especially with decks like Black Blocker, but also later on in the meta, Diaboromon and things like that, I was unable to play any more cards. If either the cards were slightly smaller or my preferred method, making it mirror what most players do in the real world, having their tamers down to the right, that would not be an issue. I didn't need to play a ton more Digimon, but going from maybe 5 to 10 Digimon would be ideal. There's a lot of different thoughts on this, however. Having the tamers where they are and stacked is good in theory if you stack 4 copies of the same card. However, like I say, because tamers can have inheritables now and things like that, it's not always the best solution. It's really hard to turn a physical card game, in specific this Digimon card game, into a mobile game on a kind of landscape vibe, when traditionally the Digimon card game is more of a kind of vertical, almost 4x3 or 1x1 on each side format. Another suggestion I thought might work would be to have a separate tamer window. The game would still act as if those tamers were on the field in front of you, but you and your opponent just click a tamer button to pull up a separate field showing all your tamers. Because the game automatically resolves effects or asks you if you want to resolve effects, all your tamers would still happen, you wouldn't accidentally miss them or anything, but that might be a solution, similar to how your hand shrinks and expands in the game. I filled in an absolute essay to the questionnaire form, however, I'm not going to go through all of it. I'll link it in the description down below if you want to see all the problems I found with Alysion, but some of them are very nitpicky. However, my overall thoughts is, despite the fact I do have problems, even if this was exactly how the game launched, I'd play it every day. I would still love to have all of these fixes, and I think these fixes will come, some of them, not all of them, but I think for me what's most key, while I don't know if it's possible for a mobile client to ever fully match the meta and have all the cards of the current game, I do hope they catch up quickly. I don't want a gacha banner every day, but every month would be nice to have maybe 2 sets added to the game, or maybe even just 1. For me, I think the appeal to a lot of people is having an environment where they can actually mirror their real world plays. However, for me, as someone that fell off playing physically because there's not really a local scene where I live, and because of the issues with delays and things like that, honestly, I think I'm just going to become an Alysion player. So whether or not the Alysion cards get physical releases, whether the game ever catches up with the current meta, is a priority not because I want it, but because I think other people would like to have it. And yeah, there's translation issues. They call Plotmon Protomon, but of course it should be Salamon per the card text. The tamers issue, as I mentioned, and something I'd really like to see in the final game. The game already has this breeding mechanic, which is like a very pared down VPET system that evolves a Digimon every few minutes or hours based on the cards you've been playing, supposedly. And then when you reach Mega, you can trade them in for a random card from that line. So say if you got the Gemmon line, right? Gemmon, Liskmon, Reptilimon, Rubiastramon. When you finally reach maturity, you could get a card, and it would either be Gemmon or Liskmon or Reptilimon or Rubiastramon. It's a random draw. But my hope for the breeding mechanic is that it expands more into a proper VPET system. Let me do feeding and care mistakes and things like that. Or bare minimum, bring back the VPET widget from Digimon Eirias and I will be happy. I hope the gacha is fair. We can see in the beta that there are deck boxes and deck sleeves and other cosmetics. I think that would be a really good way to increase your revenue without making the gacha super broken. But yeah, everything else else is more nitpicky in my opinion, so check out my tweet in the description down below if you want to see all the issues I had with Alysion. Other than that, I'm super excited. I was really hoping to have more story in this closed beta. Of course, we wouldn't have more story because it's a closed beta, but I did all the story within the first hour and I managed to get 3 streams and 2 videos out of it, so it tells you how good that loop is. It showed me that even if the story chapters are done, I could definitely play this game every day. There are challenges and things to do, like trying to de-digivolve your opponent's Digimon 200 times or whatever, and in exchange you'll get gems for the card gacha. Now this might change in the finished game. They might be less generous with those gems, they might be more generous. They're probably not going to be more generous, but I think it's a really good start, and honestly just having a Digimon game that I can play daily, that I can stream whenever we get bored, feels like a huge win. But I really want to find out what's going on with Black Shoto. So thank you to my Sovereign ZDK14, everyone else who supports me over on patreon.com/Karn EX, as well as my YouTube channel members here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time when we go digital. Bye bye.